Okay, thank you everybody. I'm just going to call Tanya to this stage to chair the final session. Thank you. Okay, Tanya. I can't tell how loud I am with that. Okay, that's great.
Welcome back, everyone, this afternoon. Is that too loud? Our next speaker is Thomas Starkmann from Austria. He's a biologist with a focus on birds based in Vienna, and he's doing all sorts of ornithological mappings throughout Austria and is an ecological advisor at building renovations in Vienna. Now, we all know how time-consuming it is to map our own populations in our own patch, so the concept is quite daunting of thinking of expanding it to a large city. So we look forward to hearing what Thomas has to say.
Thanks, Tanya, for the introduction. I will give a talk about different methods of mapping swifts, and then I will talk a little bit about what we are doing in Vienna and planning to do. And in the end, I will give a swift outlook of the future of mapping swifts. So what is the purpose of mapping swifts? Evidence-based population trends. You have to know your local swifts. Which type of nest sites do they inhabit? In which areas do they breed? It's very important to, when it comes to compensation measures, that you put the right nest boxes or the right compensation measures. And after all, for species conservation, you have to conserve the nest sites. This is the most important. And if that is not possible, then you have to put the right compensation measures. And for that, you need to know your local swifts. What are the different methods of mapping swifts? The first one is counting flying individuals. The second one is counting nest sites. There are different ways to do that. And you can also map buildings if they are suitable for swifts, or how many cavities are suitable for swifts at these buildings. And last but not least, you can also using playback. The method of counting flying individuals is in predefined areas or transects, which represent a different building type. Or you can do it simultaneously on a spot where you can have a good view over the sky. In cities, is normally street crossings. In areas or in transects, you go steadily for a certain amount of time and you count the flying individuals. And these areas should have a similar building type, because this is representative for a larger area in the city with the same building type. But of course, in a large city or in a larger area, larger region, you can't map the whole city or the whole area. So you have to define some areas that are feasible for several persons. And then you are calculating for the whole building type in the city. You have to do it the same duration, 1 hour, 1.5 hours, to keep the sampling effort the same. You have to choose one time of the day. You should avoid to switch on different times of the day, and also the time of the swift season. So you're either doing it at the beginning of the swift season, in the mid, or in the end. And you only count low-flying individuals, preferably screaming parties, because the high-flying individuals, they are supposed that they are not belonging to this area. And preferably you do it the hour before sunset, but as you can see, there's a peak of activity in the evening. You should avoid early mornings and late afternoons, but You can also do it in the morning. There's a good activity in the morning as well. The evening has the advantage that it's suitable for citizen scientists that normally work during the day, and in the evening they can map swifts. But the disadvantage in the evening is that one person can do one area and not more. But in the morning, one person can do several areas, 2 or 3 areas at one day. So maybe in the morning is more efficient. For this method, you don't need that much time or not that much person. It's quite good to make a population estimate. So if you don't have any clue about how many swifts are breeding in your region, in your city, this gives quite easy a rough estimate how many breeding pairs of swifts do you have. If you do it every year, then you can have a good population trend. But I don't know any long-term counting flying individual studies. So in the beginning of the 2000s, there were some studies in Germany. They did it 1 year, and also in Vienna, we did it 1 year in 2003, and then just many years after the next one. And for real population trends, it's difficult to map just 1 year, and in 20 years after you do it in another one, it's very difficult to compare these two mappings. What are the disadvantages of this method or the problems? Mostly the non-breeders. It's very difficult to calculate the numbers of non-breeders in a certain region. And yeah, migrants, it's in the beginning and the end, maybe a problem, but normally in the high season of the swift season is not, the migrants are not really a problem. There is a lack of current data, so it would be very nice to have a comparison from other cities with the same building type, that you have a density of from there, that you compare it with your similar building type in your city. But in the last 20 years, this method is not really done in Europe, at least. You need data for the building types. So we are getting more and more open data. The data have a more and more high resolution, but it's very different for the cities that you have access to the data for the building types, the age, the height, and so on. The next method I will present to you is counting nest sites. This is the best way to preserve nest sites of swift. You can't do it at a random building, so you need sources like known places where you know that the swift has bred before, reports from citizens, or you do an area mapping before counting nest sites, or also the data from rescue center is a valuable source of information. It's the best, or maybe the only way to really conserve nest sites. You not only get the number of breeding pairs, but also a lot of information on the nest site, which building structure they use, which nest site they use, and as far as I know, it's very different throughout Europe. And of course in China it's a different story. So you need to know your local swifts, but it is time consuming. So it's very time consuming to map buildings, and this is the reason why it is not done very often. So normally the counting nest sites at buildings you do visually by humans, but you can also do it with video. So this is a recent publication from Sandoz de Margerie, published earlier this year. They suggest a continuous filming of a building from more or less about the same time like you do it visually by humans. And they record in the field. they take several video frames to put one still image, and you get, at the end, you get a photo like this, and you know it. And then you have the place where the swift is nesting. This method is also suitable for non-Swifties, so you just need to be able to handle a camera. You don't have to need to know anything about Swifts. But the disadvantage is that you need time for post-processing. So for that reason, this method is only suitable, in my opinion, for larger buildings, because one person can handle just a part of a building, but one person can handle several cameras at one time. So one person can map a larger building at one evening, and this is, for me, the main advantage for this method. You can also think about long-term recording, for example, for new Swift hours or new nest boxes. If you want to have a look at the colonization rate of a new Swift hour, of new nest boxes, there might be a possibility that you do long-time recording. Then you have problems with memory cards or with the battery. But I think that this might be a good method for the occupation for new nest boxes or Swift towers. And the authors suggest that this can be a good method for a citizen science project, as it is not necessary to be a Swift enthusiast for this method. You have the possibility to have video nerds for this, to get to map Swifts. Another method is to monitor large colonies. You can either do it visually by humans, video from outside, video from inside, nestbox cameras, and also ringing. This is a very good method for long-term population trends if you do it every year. There is also much more information possible, not just the number of breeding pairs, especially if you have nestbox cameras or ringing. You get a lot of more information about the Swifts. It is not that time-consuming like counting or mapping buildings. But the disadvantage is that normally it is only done by well-known and well-managed colonies, mostly with artificial nest boxes. And these have quite a low risk that they are vanishing without noticing. So the small colonies in the surroundings, they have a much higher risk that they vanish without noticing. And Chris Huxley explained it before with the think source concept, that the large colonies that you are monitoring can be like a magnet and attract the Swifts from the surroundings, from the colonies which are vanished without noticing. And so if you have a negative trend in your colony, then it's quite likely that the overall negative trend is also negative. But if you have in your well-managed colony a stable or positive trend, then maybe the overall trend in your city, in your region is still negative because of the think source concept that that your colony is like a magnet and attracts Swifts from the surroundings. So to minimize this effect, you can monitor several colonies in your city or region, and you have to check the surrounding. So either you map the surrounding nest sites as well, or at least that you have a look, are there renovations going on in the surroundings, to have a feeling if there is a lot of, or if there are colonies in the surroundings vanishing. The mapping of suitable buildings you do in predefined areas which are representative for this certain kind of building type. All buildings are evaluated if they are suitable for swifts, and maybe you can even have a number of possible cavities. It is a basis for area or building selection. So if you don't know where to start mapping your swifts in your town, you do a mapping of suitable buildings, and you have buildings where you can think that there are swifts nesting. For that you need experience and local knowledge. So there's a lot of input you have to do, and very little output for this method, but it is the only method you can do outside Swift season. So for all the other methods, you have to do it in Swift season. Swift season is always too short. This method you can do outside Swift season, and there's a good preparation, a good basis for the other methods. Using playback, so you can do it at night from dusk till dawn. You go to the buildings, use the playback from Swifts, and you are waiting for a response. If you get the response, then it's sure that there is a Swift presence. So presence is easy to detect. Abundance is more difficult, because if Swifts are breeding nearby, you get a response, but you hear just one response. You don't know if this is one nest site or two nest sites or even more. So it's always the minimum number of breeding pairs, not the real abundance. And with absence, if you don't get a response, you don't know if there is no Swift or you just get no response. So it's not a method for absence. It's suitable for larger areas because you can do a lot of building in one night, but you have to consider the legal status. So in many countries or cities, using playback is not allowed. You need to have a permit from the city council or whatever. And you make noise during night. So it's probably not the best idea for acceptance of nature conservation to make noise in the night. So I avoid doing it during night. So in Vienna, we are lucky that the sunset is 8:30. So I have from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. I can do this method without problems. And I prefer to do it outside residential areas to avoid disturbance also from humans. What we are doing in Vienna, or planning to do, I have defined 9 different building types, and we have 15 mapping areas where we're counting flying individuals. For the most important building types, we have 3 areas, and for the other 6, we have only 1 area per building type. We do 2 rounds of mappings, one in mid-May, we already did that, and the other one is in mid-June. To also have a comparison, in mid-May, they are supposed that the non-breeders are not arrived yet, or very few, and in mid-June, the non-breeders should be arrived, so that you have your comparison from a time of the year without non-breeders and with non-breeders. And after that, we are making a count nest mapping of known and new colonies. And after season, I will do a mapping of the building suitability of these areas. To have more information, just have a number of flying individuals. Our approach is citizen science-based, so we are several people who are doing this in free time. It should be, or it should become a long-term monitoring, so we are planning to do at least the counting of the flying individuals every year to have really a long-term data, to also have a population trend. We are testing different methods, and maybe in the future I will test new methods as well. So maybe I get input from you as well. And this can be a template for other cities or regions in Austria, in Europe, worldwide. So maybe it's a good way to map Swifts in a certain city. So coming to my last slide, I put some random ideas what the Swift mapping can look in the future. Or these are mostly applications or methods which are used for other bird species or used for other applications that might be suitable for Swift mapping as well. So the first one is passive acoustic monitoring. We have a talk about this in nest boxes, but this will be similar to the passive acoustic monitoring in forests, that you put microphones at the buildings and you are trying to recognize maybe individual voices, but that's probably reserved to songbirds. Or you can, with this passive acoustic monitoring, if you are recording Swifts at the same time from different locations of a certain area, that you can calculate abundance. Maybe this is possible, maybe not. Other methods would be radar. Radar is a long time used for bird migration, so maybe you can set a radar in a city as well, at a building, to measure the abundance of Swifts in a certain area. Also, automatic visual detection is used especially for windmills to detect raptors. Maybe it's also in the future possible to detect Swifts, or how many Swifts are in the city. You can do the building mapping with Google Street View and machine learning, so with an automated process. This already works quite well with road damages. So maybe in the future you can have a Python script or whatever and with machine learning, that you do a whole city automated process, that you can have a list of buildings which are suitable for Swifts, and then you make a counting the nest sites at these buildings. So maybe this can be a method in the future. And also with machine learnings, maybe there are new parameters that we don't know already. So there's a study in Poland. They examined the traffic noise and some other parameters. And with the computational skills we have these days, it's easy to make a model, to put parameters in, and then at the end, maybe you have a parameter of a certain factor that we don't know yet. And with this machine learning, it's easy to put 100 factors into a model, and if there is one factor which really makes a difference coming outside, then it's good. So this is a Swift outlook for the future. Thank you very much for your attention, and looking forward to the questions after on.
Well, thank you, Thomas. We have a change to our program this afternoon because, unfortunately, Jack Lesser has fallen foul of travel arrangements and he can't give his talk this afternoon, but Linda has managed to arrange that he will be giving it during the day tomorrow. And before I talk about our final talk, I've had a message from Chris Huxley, who you just heard. And Chris wants you to realize he is red-green colorblind. So when he put his arrows up to show you his Swift colonies, they were green and he thought they were red. Now, our final topic, the life and times of a life with Erich Kaiser, needs no introduction to anybody. The wonderful Erich Kaiser. I had the privilege of sitting next to him at the Chechen conference and remain in total awe of his achievements. Now, Edward Mayo and Evert Pellenkoft, who will be giving an appreciation of his life. Edward is known to most swift conservationists around the world. He founded Swift Conservation to protect declining swift populations, and leveraging his background as the former head of gallery management at London's Tate Gallery, he bridges urban architecture and biodiversity. Since the late 1990s, he has fought the modern building trends that block birds from traditional nesting sites. Edward works directly with architects, local councils, and governments to mandate wildlife-friendly building practices. He remains an important global voice for integrating nature into modern urban design. Evert is a Dutch ornithologist and core advocate for the Amsterdam Swift Conservation Group, dedicated to urban swift preservation. He carries out extensive censuses across Amsterdam to track negative population trends caused by modern airtight building renovations. Evert is a recognized expert on swift biology, behavior, and anatomy. His studies primarily focus on their unique visual acuity, sensory adaptations, and aerial living, presenting at the Segovia Swift Conference. Over to Evert and Edward.
Can you hear me okay? Yes? Jolly good. Wow, it's great to be here. It's great to see so many people and so many new people here coming to learn or talk about Swifts. This is just amazing. So many people, so concerned. And I'm starting the talk, the tribute to Erich Kaiser. Now, if you didn't know about Erich and his work, he was the man who started us all breeding swifts at home. And it all starts with Erich here, who was a beekeeper. How do I switch slide? Yep, that's it. It all started with Erich as a very young man deciding that he had to find something to do in the aftermath of the Second World War. There he was in Germany, and he had to find something to do that was going to be peaceful, productive, and independent. After the horrors of the Second World War, this was essential. And he chose commercial beekeeping and honey production. But to study it, he came to Oxford. He came to Oxford in Britain, and he worked with the Gales Honey Company, which was one of the biggest, most famous honey companies in Britain. But while he was in Oxford, he discovered the Oxford Museum of Natural History, where David Lack, the director of the Edward Gray Institute for Ornithology at the university, had set up in this medieval-style tower a swift colony. Behind those ventilators, which are the typical medieval ventilator, there are two little holes leading to nest boxes. And this was the great innovation. This was the great thing about the Oxford colony. It wasn't natural, it was man-made. And here are some views of the tower and what was inside the tower, what David Lack had created. Behind each ventilator hole, two nest boxes with a sort of ramp that the birds went up and down to get into the nest boxes. And each nest box has got a little window and a little curtain, so the birds could be studied. For the first time ever, the birds could be studied in comfort in the nest. There was a Victorian clergyman who lay on his tummy in the loft and watched swifts in the eaves. But since that time, nobody had decently, reliably watched swifts in the nest. And so Erich was the first person to do that. Sorry, David Lack was the first person to do that. And Erich, when he went home to Kronberg, his hometown on the edge of the Taunus Mountains, very leafy, very green, full of lovely flying insects, he went to the family home and he converted the top floor to house swifts, modelled on Oxford, but better. Eventually, he got 90 swifts into his and his wife's home, and he developed a totally new approach to studying swifts. Setting up a swift colony with multiple types of nest boxes. The first ones, he just simply drilled holes through the wall with a diamond core drill and then put a box on the inside. Later, he moved on to more sophisticated boxes under the eaves with multiple nest places in them. But it was all done to experiment with how you could house swifts in a domestic building. And we've been copying these ideas ever since. Erich started them. We've been copying them and developing them. So it really is all down to Erich. And the great thing about Erich was he treated swifts with total integrity. I mean, it's very easy to become cruel when dealing with animals, become callous and hardened. And in fact, in the 19th century, people did vivisection and all sorts of horrible things, and still animal experimentation and putting shampoo into the eyes of rabbits to test whether it harms eyes, all that sort of horror went on right until very recent days and had to be controlled by law. But Erich was never like that. He wasn't sentimental, he wasn't anthropomorphic, he was always decent, sensitive, humane, and as unintrusive as possible. So he invented new ways of recording swift movements and behavior that impinged really little on their lives. And he created a superior system for observation. This is his famous Gable colony, the Gable colony, where you could watch 12 or more nests in action without the swift seeing you, because you were behind a plexiglass wall in a dark cupboard, and the swifts were the other side, lit by tiny little lights. So they couldn't see you, you could see them, and you could watch swifts about their activity, laying eggs, feeding their chicks, coming in and out, drying themselves off after getting wet. So amazing, amazing system of observation. Totally revolutionized research. And non-intrusive methods for practical research, weighing swifts. Erich invented a system whereby there's a scale under that nest cup, an ordinary domestic scale, a sensitive one. And so the swifts, when they crawled on and off the nest cup one by one, if you were lucky, you could weigh them. So if you were patient, you could weigh the birds, rather than the normal method, which is grabbing the bird, stuffing it into a bag, hanging it on a scale, weighing it, getting it out of the bag, and then throwing it into the air, which is the normal way of weighing a captive bird, a wild bird, which is risky, causes trauma, might lose feathers, very unpleasant for the bird. But this way, it just steps onto the scale. Brilliant. From the 1950s to 2020, he studied swifts, and he shared his knowledge with everyone. I went there a couple of times. Evert went there more often. Loads of people went in to see the swifts, to meet Erich, to discuss swifts with them. And he just poured out the knowledge. He had it all on his computers. Evert will tell you a load more about this. This is a brief tribute, a very brief tribute. It's my shortest talk ever, to an amazing and unique man. You've seen how he started his life work with swifts and his unique approach. Evert, who knew Erich really well, will share with you some of Erich's discoveries and innovations. This is all about Erich Kaiser, 1937 to 2025, the man who started it all off for me and many other people too. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, hello everybody. I'm Evert Pellenkoft from Amsterdam, and I'll continue our dual speech. Erich was an amiable man, always in a great mood, and he liked to tell anecdotes with a funny twist, Witze in German. When you think of me, don't be sad, but talk about me, don't be afraid to laugh. He was a very optimistic man. His wife Gertrude and his son Daniel over here. Yeah, we're also involved in beekeeping and looking after the Swiss colony. And Erich was working hard for a good honey yield, and he said he jested that his son and daughter were paid for their studies with it. By the way, apus and apis is just one letter different. So swift and bee. It will be familiar to many of us. That like Erich, we were looking up for swifts in summer since we were school children and were enchanted by them. Erich's gentle approach and dedication to his bees and swifts alike. He was acting like a balancer between nature and colony, and as a dancer between earth and sky, so to say, protecting and promoting bees and swifts. A list of 7 publications, but he wrote far more in Nature magazines and gave a lot of interviews. In 2011, the Bavarian TV crew was filming the colony in his house for about 4 weeks. And Erich was very angry afterwards that they just called it Mauersegler of Bernried. And there was about 80% on the footage of Erich's house, but I think because it was TV Bavaria, it had to promote BRD TV. Therefore, his son, Daniel, put it under Meliapus Imperator Kronebergiensis to cover up the title for copyright reasons, because you can find it on YouTube. And it was also shown in the 2012 conference, if somebody will remember. It is worth looking, get a good view on what Erich did. And in 1998, he did an experiment with 20 radio-tagged swifts, 10 nestlings and 10 yearlings, glued with a transmitter falling off in 2 weeks. He did it with Michael Taburton, an Australian researcher who tagged white-throated swifts in Australia. And because he wanted an answer to the question if they remained roosting in the air. And the team of Mike Taburton, Erich, and Jan Holmer from Sweden followed the swifts with an antennae like this in the sky. And here's Erich's home. And for instance, this one they picked up and could follow it up there about 40 kilometers. And another one in the night, going from Erich's home in the direction of Frankfurt Airport, where the police were going after him because they had an antenna out of the car in the neighborhood of the airport. And the outcome was the nestlings, first post-fledged night of its life on the wing, and not imprinted on its natural colony. It fledged at dark. Yearlings visit several colonies, and second year pre-breeders stay more at one colony. So all spend the full night on the wing. In 1997, Erich published an article about the sexual recognition, because you can't distinguish them just by their feathers. And he said that you could hear the difference in their call. They would only publish the article if they had a sonogram added to it, and this was the sonogram of Ulrich Tigges. But as you can see, it's very vague, not very clear. And in 2016, for instance, Ansorge published this, and you can see the scream and this peculiar second trill. So when they're close up, it's a male, and with more gaps between it, it's a female. That's the article in British Birds. And I have here, this is a statue similar to an oscillogram with the message, will bronze sound sculpture survive the real call of the swifts? The Gable colony, Edward showed before, is like a dollhouse, as you see, and he put in many clever items, like starling's lock, and he removed all the louse fly pupae and droppings. He kept it very clean. He made nest molds of 10 centimeters in diameter, and he had a dim lights and a ventilator, and also the scales, all to support his scientific research. And when you were there, sitting in front of the colony, which was an open house for many visiting Swifts fans, mesmerized by what was happening. So suddenly Swifts running inside, soaking wet to take shelter from a rainstorm, or a bursting bolus from the pouch of a feeding swift covered the head of the adult when it tried to feed its young. It's a very peculiar thing. Here you can see the scales again on a readable scale, and that's the swift from very nearby. You could see this very near, and you could even see the saliva of the food bolus. It contains enzymes, nutrients and moisture for the young, stick together with saliva, and the same saliva is for building the nest. It hardens in the air. Okay. And this, Edward showed this as well. I was there in 2004, and this is the Fab 4. That's a nest with 4 young. That's exceptional. And afterwards, in the same year, okay, 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 13. 14. 15. 16. 17. 18. 19. 20. 21. 22. 23. 24. 25. 26. 27. 28. 29. 30. 31. 32. 33. 34. 35. 36. 37. 38. 39. 40. 41. 42. 43. 44. 45. 46. 47. 48. 49. 50. 51. 52. 53. 54. 55. 56. 57. 58. 59. 60. 61. 62. 63. 64. 65. 66. 67. 68. 69. 70. 71. 72. 73. 74. 75. 76. 77. 78. 79. 80. 81. 82. 83. 84. 85. 86. 87. 88. 89. 90. 91. 92. 93. 94. 95. 96. 97. 98. 99. 100. 101. 102. 103. 104. 105. 106. 107. 108. 109. 110. 111. 112. 113. 114. 115. 116. 117. 118. 119. 120. hang on. Oh yeah. Afterwards, in the same year, there appeared second broods. 3 nests had eggs. And that's quite exceptional because swifts don't do that usually. And it's unknown what delayed the migratory urges, so that 24% controlled breeding pairs started a second brood. One early arrival with early egg laying, no second brood before. Better conditions, cool and damp, not cold or frequent rain, normal food availability. So it remains a mystery why this happened. And only one of the 5 pairs was nestling, stayed long enough to fledge their 2 nestlings successfully. Yeah, okay. This is one of the nestlings who came out of the second brood. And here is on the balcony of his house, he showed me a nest box with an infertile pair, and put eggs under them, and they breeded successfully. So it's a foster parents plan, so to say. Here's Erich waving a towel or a white shirt, and he attracted the swifts, which were very curious. And it's an instance of a rare moment of a connection with this elusive wild being who never comes close to you. It always remains a distance. And I did it myself, and it worked. Here's Erich trying to catch swifts with a big lab net under his gable colony. And he tried to ring them and search them with the help of Gertrude. The above part it's ringing on its small leg, and that's Erich with magnifying glasses to study the rings, and his wife Gertrude helping him, and even had a transponder on the ring to count the times the swift entered the nest. But also he had, for the first time, the geolocators put on, and he put them off to give them to a researcher who processed them. Here they are looking for the first time at the geolocators. And Erich had a huge data bank of ring swifts to measure their sizes, age, and mold. Here he releases them on the balcony, like Edward said. He never grabbed them really, but didn't want to do any damage to them. And he also put on Typex on their wings so he could recognize them. Now this is the end of the talk, a memory of Erich up there in the sky. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Edward and Evert. Now, unfortunately, we're running out of time, so we're not going to be able to have a question and answer session just now. Sorry to our speakers, but we do have a chance to watch a lovely film made by the RSPB about communities coming together to celebrate swifts. And we have Will Bevan from the RSPB, who is just going to introduce the film. And that will conclude this afternoon.
Hi everybody, my name is Will Bevan. I work for the RSPB, which is the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. I work on a project which is all about getting more volunteers and communities involved with saving some of our most vulnerable species, including swifts. So it's been such an incredible day. We've heard so much, such a variety of talks, and it's really just so inspiring to see so many people together who have come here, who care about swifts and want to save them. And that's what this video is all about. Just as swifts have the power to bring us together, they also have the power to bring ordinary communities together, united around a common cause. So this is a video that was commissioned by the RSPB with the support of the Leeds Swift Group, and I think it really demonstrates just the power of swifts to unite people and bring them together. So I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, sad profile, yeah? Sweet.
Yeah, it had to be the Swift mug.
As soon as you've done this, you can have your dinner. You've got to perform first. This is going to get you dinner.
Was that a Swift that just went past then?
Who here likes Swifts?
Me.
In the evening now, during the summer, it's great. You can just sit there sky watching sometimes, you know. You just see them flying around. You know, it comes in the name Swift. Very, very quick. I love how, you know, they fly around together in their pack.
The way they fly, they're really aerodynamic. They're really cool to watch.
Can you imagine what it must be like flying at that speed?
The fastest bird in level flight. I don't think there's any other bird like them.
Swifts never land apart from when they're coming to breed, so they could stay in the air for 2, 3, 4 years. Flying for them is just like breathing. They seem quite playful as well.
When you watch them, the pure joy they give, and that's the essence of it, I think.
There's no sound that's quite like a swift.
They make such a racket, but it's just like really primal and exciting.
People associate swifts with summer and happy times in summer.
Long evenings, very hot weather, and swifts.
It's tantalising. They arrive and before you know it, they've gone. They spend the rest of the time on migration to and from Africa.
The fact they can migrate to Africa on their own, I can't get to the side of Leeds without something like that. And then the fact they come back here and a swift can come back to the individual nest on the house, that's just incredible.
We wait for them to come back each year. Yeah. Everybody gets quite excited when they come back.
Oh, that's just amazing. Everybody wants to see their first swift, don't they? It's a joyful moment when we do.
If for some reason these didn't come back one year, that would be, I can't describe that, it would be devastating, you know.
If we didn't have any swifts, it would be a bit sad.
Swifts normally nest in cavities and eaves of roofs. As we've refurbished and upgraded our buildings, we're restricting the areas where swifts used to nest. There's plenty of videos of distressed swifts trying to re-enter a nest site that they perhaps used for the last 10 years, so that can be quite upsetting to see. Swift populations have declined by over 50%. It's almost too devastating to contemplate, isn't it? My God, we're going to lose these species. You have to turn it around and go, what can we do? Encourage swifts.
The swift nesting bricks will have been, I think, one of the best things we've done on the development. It is just like installing another brick. When it's cheap, easy to do, it promotes a healthy environment. It's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you do it?
You've got to get off your backside and help out. It thrills me to bits to think I've got all of those nest boxes out for the swifts. 33,600 and something, I think it is.
I started putting boxes up in 2012. More and more people was happy to have boxes put up on the houses, and so there's now about 20 houses that have got boxes. You can provide substitute nest spaces, that's the thing. With a bit of help, swifts can recover.
Look at it over there, look at them all. Providing nest boxes and swift bricks is a no-brainer. So we need to talk about the successes all around the country.
Welcome to Swift Park Avenue.
Oh, so we're going number 3. Yep, so
It's definitely helped to gel us as a street. You know, there's a new talking point, you know, rather than noise pollution or whatever, the bin's not getting collected.
you hear that noise, and it's summertime, isn't it?
I think the feel-good factor for a street, you know, how much it brings to a community, so it's absolutely fantastic.
I've seen a swift go into it.
The swift nesting bricks has also given a boost to the numbers of sparrows. So it's good news all around about the value of what we're doing, and I am a convert.
I'm so glad they're here. It's a reminder always like a part of a bigger thing.
They're a bit like friends to us. It's called the Swifts.
It loves them to bits. We watch them out of the window flying in and out. Why would you not want nature as close as you could get it?
Nest boxes and swift bricks is a no-brainer. We need to provide nesting sites. Hearing them now, look, that's fantastic.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much. And just to conclude today, thank you to the Chair, to Deirdre Garvey, to Tanya, to all the speakers. Sorry we couldn't do the last lot of questions, but just go out and enjoy the sunshine. You know, it's really rare in Mayo. So we're going to start at 9 a.m. sharp tomorrow, and we have an excellent first guest speaker. So enjoy your evening, and thank you very much for coming along.